What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys, for a little discussion video looking at the news from this past weekend, because it's not very often that we get to have two huge premiere events happening in the same weekend at the same exact time, and so it makes for a myriad of results. And also, these are two of the I don't think these are. I think we had a YCS. Yeah, we had a YCS. I think so far, but these are like two of our first YCSs of the format. A format that we're still working on, still trying to solve completely. We still are working through that to really find a solidified format, and so this will only go to help that. So if you're curious what the two events were, we had YCS Las Vegas. That was a 3v3 event where you get two of your best dueling buddies or people you think you can just be successful with for one weekend, and you play head v head versus other three-man parties, and see how far you can go. Now, this event cuts to top 16, which actually means there's technically 48 duelists in the top cut, which is just a little higher than normal, but still the results still are pretty good, because you got to be pretty successful for your team to make it far. So I think every individual list still kind of matters there. But yeah, let's take a look at some of the results. So first up, we're looking at these. We have 18 spirals out of 48 decks. That is over a third. I think it's about close-ish to 40%, not quite 40%, but it's right around 40%. 5 of those were built with scrap engines in them. The other ones, I'm sure, were just more standard than that. I think people leaned off of well, maybe some people are playing extravagance, but I would bet that it's more of like the pure version. 7 Invoked Shaddoll decks. I was curious how good this deck would perform. It's getting a lot of hype. It's gotten some regional tops. Got some pretty nice, showing right out the gate. And we see here that kind of continues here. This is tied for the second most represented deck coming into this. And then we see another one, a big doozy. 7 dinosaur decks out of top 48. Here, which is actually huge, tied for second best in terms of representation. That's pretty dang good out of 48. Really, that's actually really surprising to me. Dinosaurs, I thought, would kind of take the place of I don't know, what's a good example? Almost in the place of True Draco, not in terms of what it does, but in terms of you'd see, if you saw 3 in a top cut, you'd be like, oh, that's a pretty good showing. But if you're more so expecting 1 or 2. But here we are, 7 dinosaurs, definitely representing higher than I thought they would moving into top cut. And maybe this will be a huge option people will be switching to, especially when we know we're getting reprints for some of the most expensive cards for this deck, as well as the new dinosaur card in Eternity Code. Definitely could be a huge ringer for this deck coming forward. Then we have 4 Salamangreats. It's actually kind of low for what I was expecting. I mean, when you compare that, I thought this might have been competing with Spiral for best deck in the format, but we see that's not necessarily the case here. 4 Salamangreats, which is fine, but at a top 48, that ain't that great. So, pun intended. So Salamangreat's a little bit underrepresented here. I'm curious what that is. Maybe people aren't sure how they face it in the new format. Some other stuff, maybe some growing pains with losing cards, losing Mirage Stallion and stuff. But yeah, still 4. We're still there, just not all the way there. Then we have 4 Dragon Link decks. Now keep in mind, this one's a little bit skewed because there was a team entirely playing Dragon Link. All right, I think it's important to know they still had to play well enough to make top cut, but it was 3 all in one team, so that does make a bigger advantage. You're practicing with these guys. All 3 of them can come together to make this list right. You're getting advice from people playing the same exact deck, which means their advice might mean a little more, might be a little more, I want to say focused, because they do know the exact deck you're playing. They know the exact situations that you can end up in, and you can get better advice that way. So that's pretty interesting. 3 Lunalights. This is actually kind of exactly where I expected Lunalights to be. A lot of people thought they might be one of the best decks coming out. I think they're a good deck. I don't think they're one of the best decks. I think they're going to sit down in tier 2, but they'll get their tops here and there. So don't be afraid there, but you should definitely know the matchup there. 2 Alter Guys. This is a little underrepresented to me. I thought this might even be higher than Lunalights. I thought this would be around the 4 or 5 range with Sally's and Dragon Link, but yeah, those stun decks really just getting overwhelmed by the meta, getting Spiral and Invoke Shaddoll and Dinosaur stuff like that. So they're there, but they're not huge in this event. And then we finish up with some of the one-ofs. Only 3: 1 Subterror, 1 Infernoid, and 1 Block Dragon Burning Abyss. Cool. We knew Subterror is still a decent deck, still a pretty good deck. It's just only one here, so nothing crazy. One Infernoid. We've seen this time and time again. One Infernoid, one Infernoid, one Infernoid. Always sneaking into top cut. They actually got second place, I think, the Infernoid guy. Or he was on the team that got second place, I should say. And then the Black Dragon Burning Abyss. This guy, I think, made top 4. Which is cool to see. We thought Burning Abyss might be one of those sleeper decks of the format. We see it can still top. It still has that power. It just takes the right pilot on the right day. It's one of those things. It's not consistently powerful enough to be in that top cut every single time. But yeah, a couple surprising things here and there. I think Invoke Shaddoll a little higher. Dinosaur's a little higher. Salamangreat's a little lower. Dragon Link about where I expected after the premier top, or after the first place list by Shumping, I think is his name. Sorry if I said that wrong. And then everything else, like Altergeist a little bit underrepresented, but everything else kind of seems pretty true to form there. So then let's take a look at the YCS UTRECHT. Utrecht 2020 top 64 actually, because keep in mind this event I'm pretty sure had 2,400 players. That's absolutely ginormous, especially for a European YCS. So that is ginormous. So they actually went to top 64 instead of top 32, and these are the results. So here, this seems a little more standard to what I was expecting. So 13 Spiral, okay, most represented, but it's not even crazy. The other one was what? 18 less decks in top cut in top 48, but 5 more Spirals. The Spiral is much less, much of a worse conversion rate in this event here, which is really interesting to see. Salamangreats back up. This is where I thought Salamangreats would be. I mean, bigger top cut, but it ain't that much bigger. And we have 10 Salamangreats here. This is kind of where I expected them to be, competing with Spirals for that top cut. For the best deck in the game. I didn't think they would be it, but I know they were highly represented, and they are showing out here. They are putting up pretty good numbers. Next up is Altergeist. This is about where I expected Altergeist to be. So YCS Utrecht is about where I expected it to be, but for some reason the 3v3 YCS has some weird numbers going on. We got dinosaurs all over the place, which is cool. I'm not mad about it. I'm just surprised. So yeah, Altergeist here, kind of about the third deck. I think there needs to be a control deck in here. Not that there needs to be, but there should be. There are good control decks. There are decks that probably could compete at this kind of level, and I'm curious to see why they can't, or curious to know, I guess, why they can't in, at like our YCS in Las Vegas. So that's really interesting there. 6 Shaddoll Invoked here. This is where I really expected them to be. They're a little more highly represented than the other one, but not too away from my expectations here. So this is pretty good. I think they're a good deck. I think they'll end up in this range, maybe tier 1.5. We're going to really have a tough time, I think, deciding what's tier 1. I think Spiral and Salamander would probably be defined tier 1. I think it'll be weird to determine like what's 1.5, what's tier 2, what's there and what's not. Really, it's going to be a weird gray area for a while we're trying to figure that out. Then we have 5 dinosaurs. Even this is pretty good. 5 out of a top 64. I guess that means there's probably only 2 or 3 if we do a top 32. But, still 5 dinosaurs in top 64. That's pretty good. Dinosaurs are real, guys. Seriously, this is at least a tier 2 deck at this point in time. I'm curious what the best versions are also. That they're True King variants, we play more pure variant. You play Hyper Go second, but I know they can make some plays. There are definitely turn 1s where you can end on Pankratops. You could have ripped stuff out with Lithosagem, as well as potentially a Conductor Tyranno or a Logi or a Dolka or something. They have some plays going first. They're not amazing, but they're decent for sure. And so that's actually really interesting as well. 4 Lunalights and 4 Invoked. So keep in mind, I'm pretty sure this Invoked list is supposed to be, I don't know if this is supposed to be Mech Knight Invoked or pure Invoked control. I'm assuming it's Mech Knight Invoked because I don't really see that many players playing that just yet. I don't think Invoked control is very good until Master Rule 5. So I'm assuming these are Invoked Mech Knights, which is pretty cool. We didn't see any in our YCS, but we actually see 4 here in this top 64. That's also pretty cool. We know it's a pretty good deck. We thought with the demolishing of the 4 best decks from last format, the ceiling of the format really comes down for decks like Invoked, Dinosaurs, Altergeist, Salamangreat, all to make their move on the format, and that's kind of what we're seeing, exactly that. And then here's a weird one. Thunder Dragon. 3 of them. Not one, not a random guy that made Thunder Dragon control without Colossus work. 3 different Thunder Dragon players are up here in top cut. That's crazy to me. This is definitely unexpected. I didn't expect any to top anytime soon. We've got 3 though. That's really interesting. I think that's awesome. I really do. I really think this is awesome that they're still able to top. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about this. I'm really curious to see the list and see how they're playing, what their whole strategy is. Do they play heavy hand traps and like trap lineups? Are they playing like Thunder Control? Are they playing, I don't know, possibly, I don't think they're playing like the Dragon Link stuff anymore, without like Aggro Pain and stuff. But still, super interested. I really want to see what they got going on there. And then we have 11 other rogue decks. No, so I'm assuming there might be some 2-ofs in here, but for the most part, these are probably just 1-of lists that made it through. We can see. I don't really know everything that's in here. I know there is. Oh man, what was it? Oh no, I'm blanking right now. I know there is an Orchist in Top Cut, and that made top 16, which is really cool. I really want to see the Orchis list that made top 16. And there's also, no, there's one more list. What is it? Hold on, I'm scrolling through my phone. There's a Mech Knight Invoked. Oh, never mind. That's the Invoked list. Never mind. So we know there's at least a Orchis list that made top 16, which is pretty damn good for a 2,400 person tournament. I really am curious to see their list. And then there could be stuff like I said, Sub-Terrors, Infernoid, Heroes, decks like that. I don't even know what else. There's 11 other decks. I'm really curious to see deck profiles when this comes out to see what is actually capable of topping, because clearly this format is all over the place. I mean, look at all these decks that were able to top. Like, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Potentially 19 different lists got top 64. There may be some 2-ofs in here, so maybe it's more like 15 to 19. But that's still a lot of decks. That's a lot. Nothing's overly dominant. Spiral, Salamangreat, and Ultrageist and Invoke Shaddoll kind of sitting there at the top, but like nothing's really overly dominant. I think this format looks really promising, guys. That's pretty much all I can get from this. Is that super diverse. I mean, even here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different decks in Top Cut. It's top 48, 10 decks. It's not crazy, but that is still pretty diverse, especially with like Sub-Terror, Infernoid, and Block Dragon scooting around in there. So really awesome. The format is really coming together, I think. This is, I think, the beginning of us figuring out really what this format looks like. And just in time for less than a month away, like literally 4 weeks, and we're going to get Dual Overload. And those links are going to explode the format in a bunch of different directions, I would guess. Needle Fiber, Anaconda, all that stuff. It's going to be crazy. So, guys, let me know your thoughts down below on the format, on what decks are best, what decks you thought would be better, would be worse, all that stuff. Let me know in the comments down below. Just a quick little update, though, on our big event weekend. And, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.